Now to the continued reaction from the major story this week out of Kansas, where voters turned out in high numbers to protect abortion rights in that conservative state. In what was the country's first test of the issue since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Now Democrats and supporters of abortion rights are looking ahead to how that result can be repeated in upcoming elections. Later this fall, voters in several other states, including Michigan, Kentucky, and Vermont, will also cast ballots on the future of reproductive rights. For more on that, let's bring in Morning Joe reporter Daniela Pierre-Bravo. Daniela, you wrote about this and the impact of women voters in your latest piece for Know Your Value. What did you find?
Yeah, good morning, Mika. Well, first and foremost, that this issue isn't going away. Voters in Kansas struck a nerve, and at the center of the turnout were women from both sides of the aisle, and more specifically, young women. This is, of course, the first major moment since the Supreme Court's decision earlier this summer to overturn Roe v. Wade. But beyond abortion itself, this issue seems to be about personal freedom. It's about exposing the disconnect between state legislators and constituents. And it's an issue that's strong enough to bring out voters that normally wouldn't participate. And I think that's one of the big reasons why it could have such a big impact come November and have trickle-down effects. In Michigan, for example, there is an ongoing ballot campaign to make abortion rights part of the state's constitution. And that could ultimately have a big impact on the governor's race there and overall voter turnout. And we're seeing similar initiatives to curb abortion access, as you mentioned, in Kentucky and Vermont. I actually spoke to the CEO of Vote.org, who has been following reproductive rights legislation, how it's affecting voter registration, and why she saw the Kansas outcome coming.
I wasn't surprised because we were able at Vote.org to see immediately after the Supreme Court made its decision, we saw the next week a 1,000% increase in registrations. That's almost unheard of. And to see that 1,000% increase turn into actual votes wasn't surprising. It tells me that voters right now are really energized. The other interesting thing that we saw is that Kansas isn't alone. Kansas had the largest spike of registrations, but notably we saw 500% increases in Texas, Indiana, Illinois, Tennessee. Those increases are also quite high in registrations, and that all happened in the week after the Supreme Court decision.
And Mika, the key here is that those numbers about registration in Kansas did actually translate into votes. And what's also interesting and something to keep an eye on is there have been some GOP candidates like Doug Mastriano, who is running for governor in Pennsylvania, and South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, who, by the way, hasn't ruled out a presidential run. And both have previously been quite outspoken about restricting access to abortion, but are now sort of changing their aggressive tune and even being less vocal about it. But the bottom line, Mika, is that this issue is not going away, and Kansas may be illustrative of what's to come in other states come November.
All right. Morning Joe reporter Daniela Pierre-Bravo, thank you very much for that. You can read her report at knowyourvalue.com.